Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we are exploring the Washington quarter dollar not as a simple piece of pocket change, but as a living historical document struck in metal, a coin that quietly absorbed the weight of American identity during one of the most fragile moments in the nation's existence. Because when the Washington quarter was introduced in 1932, it was never meant to be just another circulating coin. It was conceived as a national statement during the Great Depression, a period when confidence was shattered, banks were collapsing, unemployment was soaring, and faith in institutions was dangerously thin, and by choosing George Washington's portrait, the United States Mint deliberately anchored the nation's currency to the image of leadership, resilience, sacrifice, and unity, sending a psychological message to millions of Americans that endurance and stability were still possible. And this decision was historically significant because it marked a permanent break from the long-standing tradition of using symbolic figures like liberty, replacing abstraction with realism, mythology with history, and idealism with proven character. And the portrait itself, inspired by Jean-Antoine Houdon's famous bust, was carefully adapted to fit the circular canvas of the coin, resulting in a design that conveyed dignity, restraint, and strength without excess. A visual balance that mirrored Washington's reputation as a leader who rejected monarchy and personal power in favor of democratic principles. And as the coin entered circulation, it became an immediate part of daily life, passed hand to hand in grocery stores, factories, farms, railway stations, and city streets, embedding itself into the routines of ordinary Americans who may not have realized they were holding a piece of evolving national symbolism. Yet every Washington quarter carried within it the tension between artistic aspiration and industrial necessity, because the U.S. Mint was under enormous pressure to produce massive quantities quickly, often sacrificing strike quality and die longevity in order to meet demand, leading to coins that varied widely in sharpness, surface detail, and overall appearance. And these inconsistencies are precisely what make the series so fascinating to collectors today, because no two examples truly tell the same story, and subtle differences in Washington's hair detail, cheek contours, lettering sharpness, and eagle feather definition can reveal not only the mint of origin but also the specific working conditions under which a coin was struck. And as the years progressed through the 1930s and into the 1940s, the Washington quarter became inseparable from the global upheaval of World War II, a period when metal conservation, labor shortages, and production urgency shaped the physical character of American coinage, resulting in quarters that often exhibit weaker strikes and hurried finishes yet carry immense historical weight as artifacts of a nation at war. And throughout this era, the quarter maintained its silver composition, a feature that tied it directly to international bullion markets and gave it intrinsic value far beyond its face denomination, a reality that would later play a decisive role in the coin's destiny when rising silver prices in the early 1960s triggered widespread hoarding, melting, and disappearance of countless earlier issues, permanently reducing survival rates and transforming what were once ordinary coins into scarce historical survivors. And this silent attrition is one of the most overlooked forces in numismatics, because while mintage figures may suggest abundance, the true rarity of a Washington quarter is determined by how many escaped circulation intact, untouched by decades of friction, bag marks, cleaning, and environmental damage. And this is why condition reigns supreme in the series, elevating high-grade examples into a completely different category of desirability and value. Especially when original luster, sharp detail, and undisturbed surfaces align, creating coins that feel frozen in time, untouched by the chaos that surrounded their creation. And beyond condition, the Washington quarter also represents continuity, because its design endured through shifting economic policies, technological advancements, and cultural changes, adapting quietly until the eventual transition away from silver in 1965 fundamentally altered the coin's material identity and public perception, marking the end of an era when circulating American coinage carried substantial intrinsic worth. And in hindsight, this moment stands as a dividing line between history and modernity, between coins made to last and coins made to circulate cheaply, further elevating the earlier Washington quarters as tangible links to a different monetary philosophy. And for collectors today, the series offers a deeply rewarding journey because it combines accessible entry points with immense depth, allowing beginners to start with common dates while offering seasoned numismatists endless challenges in pursuit of sharp strikes, premium mint state examples, and coins with exceptional eye appeal. And ultimately, the Washington quarter dollar is far more than a denomination. It is a chronicle of American endurance, craftsmanship, and evolution, captured in silver and base metal, shaped by human hands under pressure, and preserved through time as a silent witness to the nation's struggles, triumphs, and transformation. The Washington quarter dollar continues its journey beyond its ceremonial debut into a living, circulating witness of American life, evolving quietly as the decades unfolded. and as the coin moved from the early optimism of the 1930s into the turbulent years of World War II, it became something far more than a commemorative object, transforming into a dependable tool of commerce that passed through factory hands, military bases, corner stores, and family kitchens, absorbing the rhythms of daily survival during rationing, uncertainty, and sacrifice, and the steady presence of George Washington's profile during these years offered a subtle reassurance of continuity, reminding citizens that the ideals upon which the nation was founded had endured wars before and would endure again, and during this era the quarter's silver composition gave it intrinsic strength, not merely as currency but as a tangible store of value at a time when trust mattered deeply, and the sound of silver quarters clinking together became a familiar echo in American pockets, lunch counters, and pay envelopes, embedding the coin into memory through touch and sound as much as sight, and as minting expanded to meet wartime demand, subtle changes in strike quality, die wear, and mint output quietly shaped what would later become key study points for collectors. Though at the time these variations went unnoticed by the public who simply relied on the coin to function, and after the war ended and America entered a period of expansion and consumer growth, the Washington quarter seamlessly followed, adapting to increased circulation needs while maintaining its dignified design, and it was during these post-war years that the coin became a generational constant, appearing in jukeboxes, parking meters, arcade machines, and newspaper racks, integrating itself into the emerging culture of convenience and modern life. And as children grew up handling quarters as allowances or savings, Washington's image became familiar long before history books introduced his story, making the coin an early teacher of national identity, and the design itself aged gracefully, its classical balance standing in contrast to the rapidly changing visual language of advertising and media, which only strengthened its timeless appeal. And as decades passed, the quarter witnessed the social transformations of the 1950s and 1960s, circulating during moments of civil rights struggle, space exploration, and political upheaval, yet remaining visually unchanged, offering a silent reminder that while society evolves, foundational principles remain rooted. And it was during this time that rising silver prices began to quietly challenge the economics of coinage, setting the stage for one of the most significant transitions in U.S. monetary history. A transition that would redefine the Washington quarter's material identity and forever separate its early versions from those that followed. And when silver was finally removed from circulating quarters in the mid-1960s, it marked the end of an era not only in composition but in perception, because the Washington quarter was no longer just a piece of precious metal carrying national symbolism, but a modern coin reflecting practicality and mass production, and this shift subtly altered how people interacted with the coin. As older silver examples began disappearing from circulation, saved instinctively even by those who did not fully understand why, driven by an unspoken sense that something valuable was being left behind, and this instinctive hoarding created a divide between generations of quarters, one rooted in tangible worth and the other in face value alone, and yet both carried the same design, reinforcing the idea that value is not always visible on the surface. And as time moved forward, the Washington quarter became a bridge between eras, connecting the silver past to the clad present, carrying within its continuity the story of adaptation, endurance, and national identity, and this ongoing circulation ensured that the coin never became frozen in history, instead remaining active, relevant, and constantly reinterpreted by those who used it, studied it, and eventually collected it, laying the groundwork for its later recognition not merely as a common coin, but as one of the most historically layered pieces of American currency ever produced. As the Washington quarter continued its journey through American history, it quietly evolved from a commemorative tribute into one of the most recognizable and widely circulated coins ever produced, and this transformation did not happen overnight but unfolded gradually as decades of minting reflected the changing priorities, technologies, and challenges of the United States itself. Because once the coin entered daily commerce, it became embedded in ordinary life, passed from hand to hand, pocket to pocket, and generation to generation, silently witnessing economic booms, devastating depressions, global conflicts, and cultural revolutions, and throughout all these eras the dignified profile of George Washington remained unchanged on the obverse, serving as a stabilizing presence in a constantly shifting world, while the reverse design of the eagle with outstretched wings symbolized strength, vigilance, and national unity at a time when such ideals were not merely decorative but essential to survival. And as minting volumes increased dramatically to meet the demands of a growing population and expanding economy, subtle variations began to emerge, not as intentional collectibles but as natural byproducts of mass production, including differences in strike quality, die wear, planchet preparation, and mint practices that today form the backbone of serious numismatic study. Because each of these small inconsistencies tells a story about how the coin was made, where it was made, and under what conditions, and as collectors learned to recognize these details, the Washington quarter gradually transitioned from a simple unit of currency into a complex field of exploration, where even common dates could reveal uncommon characteristics to those who knew what to look for, and this period also marked the expansion of mint facilities beyond Philadelphia, with Denver and San Francisco playing increasingly important roles, each mint leaving its own subtle fingerprint on the coins it produced, whether through sharper details, softer strikes, or distinct surface textures that seasoned collectors can identify almost instinctively. And as the years progressed into the mid-20th century, the Washington quarter became deeply intertwined with the realities of war and recovery, particularly during World War II, when metal shortages and industrial pressures influenced minting priorities, leading to massive production runs designed to keep commerce flowing while the nation focused its resources on the global conflict. And during this time, the quarter's presence in everyday transactions made it a constant companion to soldiers, workers, and families alike, reinforcing its role not just as money but as a symbol of continuity amid uncertainty. And following the war, as America entered a period of rapid growth and modernization, the Washington quarter remained unchanged in design, a deliberate choice that reinforced its familiarity and trustworthiness. Even as other coins experimented with new motifs and themes, and this consistency allowed the quarter to accumulate a layered historical identity, where each decade added meaning without erasing what came before. And as silver continued to be used in its composition, the intrinsic value of the coin slowly began to intersect with its face value, creating a quiet tension that would eventually reshape the entire coinage system, because as silver prices rose and economic realities shifted, the once unremarkable metal content of the quarter became a focal point for hoarders, investors, and collectors alike, marking the beginning of a new chapter in which the Washington quarter would no longer be viewed solely as pocket change but as a tangible store of wealth and history combined. And this growing awareness altered how people interacted with the coin, encouraging preservation over spending and transforming countless ordinary examples into saved keepsakes, often tucked away without ceremony, yet destined to become part of future collections. And this era set the stage for dramatic changes to come, changes that would redefine the Washington quarter's composition, perception, and place within the broader narrative of American coinage, while still preserving its iconic imagery and enduring connection to the nation's first president. The Washington quarter dollar deepens in meaning when we move beyond its basic identity as a circulating coin and begin to understand how it quietly evolved into one of the most emotionally and historically layered coins in American numismatics. Because while its surface design appears stable and familiar, the story beneath that design reflects decades of shifting national priorities, artistic debates, economic pressures, and public sentiment, all converging on a small disc of metal that passed through millions of hands. And as the years progressed after its initial release, the quarter became a silent witness to America's transformation through war, recovery, industrial growth, social change, and modernization, with each production year subtly capturing the technological capabilities and material realities of its time, from the strength of silver supplies to the urgency of wartime conservation. And it is precisely this quiet adaptability that allowed the Washington quarter to remain relevant long after its original commemorative purpose had been fulfilled, because instead of being frozen as a one-year tribute, it became a long-term companion to everyday American life, evolving alongside the people who used it. And when silver was removed from circulating coinage, the Washington quarter did not lose its identity, it simply transformed, reflecting a nation that was adjusting to new economic realities while still honoring its past. And this transition from precious metal to clad composition represents far more than a technical change. It symbolizes a broader cultural shift in how money was perceived, from intrinsic value to trust-based value. And yet, even as the metal changed, the portrait of George Washington remained, acting as a bridge between eras, grounding modern commerce in historical continuity. And for collectors, this creates a layered experience where each quarter becomes a timestamp, a physical marker of its era, whether minted during the optimism of post-war expansion or the uncertainty of inflationary decades. And the variations in strike quality, luster, and surface texture tell stories of mint conditions, workforce demands, and production speed, especially during periods when quantity was prioritized over perfection, resulting in coins that today reveal the pressures of their birth through softness in detail or uneven surfaces. And these imperfections do not diminish the coin's value as a historical artifact, instead they enhance it, because they provide evidence of real-world conditions rather than idealized artistry. And as numismatics matured, collectors began to recognize that the Washington quarter was not merely a type coin to be checked off a list, but a vast field of study encompassing mint marks, die varieties, transitional years, and subtle design refinements that reward careful observation, patience, and long-term dedication. And this is where the coin transforms from common to captivating, because within a Denomination, often dismissed as ordinary, lies a depth that rivals far more glamorous issues, and this realization has fueled generations of collectors to search through rolls, albums, and archives, driven not only by the hope of finding something rare, but by the satisfaction of understanding how a simple object can carry complex narratives across decades. And the Washington Quarter's enduring appeal also lies in its role as an educational gateway, often serving as the first serious coin studied by new collectors, introducing them to concepts such as grading, mint distribution, composition changes, and historical context, and this educational role amplifies its importance, because it shapes how collectors learn to see coins not as isolated objects, but as interconnected pieces of a larger story, and as commemorative programs later expanded the quarter's design possibilities. The original Washington portrait gained even more significance, standing as a reference point against which innovation was measured, reminding audiences that while designs may change, the foundation remains rooted in history, and this balance between tradition and evolution is perhaps the quarter's greatest strength, allowing it to adapt without losing identity, and as decades continue to pass, the Washington Quarter remains both familiar and worthy of renewed attention, inviting each generation to look again, to notice details previously overlooked, and to appreciate how something so small can reflect the vast, complex, and ongoing story of a nation in motion. As the Washington Quarter moves deeper into the modern collecting era, its story becomes increasingly layered, shaped not only by official mint decisions but by the unpredictable forces of circulation, survival, and rediscovery, because while millions upon millions of these coins were struck year after year, only a fraction managed to escape the wear of commerce, and an even smaller number survived with the qualities that collectors value most, creating a silent divide between common examples and those few pieces that rise above the rest. And this divide is not always obvious at first glance, because value in the Washington Quarter is often hidden in details that only reveal themselves under careful study, such as the sharpness of Washington's hair above the ear, the clarity of the eagle's feathers, the strength of the strike at the center of the coin, and the presence or absence of contact marks that quietly record a coin's journey from mint to hand, and as collectors began paying closer attention to these subtleties, certain dates and mint combinations slowly emerged as sleepers, overlooked for decades before being re-evaluated through a modern numismatic lens, particularly as grading standards evolved and the population of top-grade survivors became better documented, transforming once-ignored quarters into highly sought-after treasures. And this evolution reveals an important truth about the Washington Quarter, that its value is not static, but fluid, shaped by changing tastes, new research, and the gradual disappearance of pristine examples as time moves forward, and this is especially true for early silver issues that were saved in rolls or albums, often without protection, leaving them vulnerable to toning, scratches, and environmental damage that reduced the number of coins capable of achieving elite grades today, making every well-preserved piece a minor miracle of survival. And beyond condition, the Washington Quarter's appeal is also deeply rooted in its adaptability, because few coins in American history have successfully bridged so many eras while maintaining their core identity, transitioning from silver to clad, from a single reverse design to state, territorial, and national park themes, all while retaining Washington's enduring portrait, and this continuity gives collectors a sense of narrative flow, allowing them to trace decades of American history through a single denomination, and as these design changes unfolded, new generations of collectors entered the hobby, each discovering the Washington Quarter through different entry points, whether it was pulling shiny state quarters from pocket change, inheriting silver quarters from relatives, or learning about rare dates through online communities and auction records, and this broad accessibility helps cement the coin's place as one of the most widely collected and studied U.S. issues, ensuring constant demand across multiple levels of the market, from beginner sets to elite registry competitions, and yet, for all its familiarity, the Washington Quarter never fully reveals all its secrets, because even today, previously unknown varieties, striking anomalies, and unusual die states continue to surface, reminding collectors that discovery is still possible, that history is not finished, and that even a coin seen billions of times can still surprise those who look closely enough, and this sense of ongoing discovery fuels passion within the hobby, turning ordinary searches into moments of excitement, where the past suddenly feels present again through a small disc of metal that has quietly waited decades to be noticed. As the story of the Washington Quarter dollar reaches its final movement, the true power of this coin becomes clear not through isolated rarities or fleeting price spikes but through the quiet endurance of its legacy, because this quarter has lived through wars, economic collapses, cultural revolutions, and technological transformations while never losing its place in everyday American life, passing through countless hands while silently witnessing history unfold, and that continuity is what elevates the Washington Quarter beyond a simple collectible and into the realm of a national artifact, one that represents stability, resilience, and trust in a system that has evolved yet remained anchored to familiar symbols. And when collectors study the highest-grade examples preserved in immaculate condition, they are not merely admiring sharp strikes or flawless surfaces. They are looking at frozen moments in time where metal, art, and history aligned perfectly, creating pieces that survived untouched while millions of others fulfilled their intended role in commerce. And these survivors tell a deeper story about human behavior, about the instinct to save something meaningful, about recognizing importance even before rarity is fully understood. And this instinct has shaped the modern market where certain dates, mint marks, and errors command intense attention, not because they were designed to be rare, but because circumstance intervened, whether through low mintages, production changes, or simple chance. And as decades passed, these differences transformed ordinary quarters into extraordinary treasures, some achieving prices that seem impossible for a coin once worth 25 cents, yet those values are reflections of demand, history, and emotion rather than metal alone. And beyond the auction records and price guides lies the deeper influence of the Washington Quarter as a gateway coin, one that introduces countless people to the world of numismatics. Because it is familiar, accessible, and rich with variation, allowing beginners and seasoned collectors alike to explore history through something they may have once overlooked in their pocket change. And this accessibility ensures that the Washington Quarter continues to inspire curiosity, education, and passion across generations, bridging the gap between casual interest and serious collecting. And even as modern designs evolve and commemorative series expand, the original Washington Quarter remains a benchmark, a reference point against which other circulating coins are measured, reminding us that lasting design does not require excess, only balance, symbolism, and purpose. And when we step back and view the full arc of its existence, from its origins honoring a founding figure to its role in modern collecting culture, we see a coin that has done far more than circulate. It has connected people to history in a tangible way, offering a shared experience across time, and this enduring relevance ensures that the Washington Quarter Dollar will never truly fade, because its story is still being written every time one is discovered, studied, saved, or simply appreciated for what it represents, a small but powerful piece of history that continues to speak without words, carrying meaning far greater than its face value. Thanks for watching.